The Beach House on Shudder. Brand new film. Been getting a lot of attention and hype over the last couple weeks or months since it came out. About a young couple vacationing at the male in the picture there, his family's beach house, spending some time off the grid, while simultaneously, it just so happens, some sort of primordial organism or being is released from the bottom of the ocean, basically plaguing the entire community and invading them both biologically and psychologically for a yucky old wet time. Connor, what'd you think of The Beach House?
I really liked it.
Yeah?
The movie made me sleepy, not in a bad way. It's just like the long takes, like the long shots. They really relish those. And it's just like a calm atmosphere, and then it just gets fucking wild at the end. I love like the 50s or 60s kind of horror vibe it has going on towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the Night of the Living Dead type vibe to it, with the infected at the end.
Yeah.
White eyes and just crawling everywhere. I thought it was really creepy. It's very gross.
Yeah, it's a little yucky.
When she pulls the worm out of her foot.
That's the big scene, right? Pulling the worm out of your foot.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was really good.
Brandon, how you doing tonight, friend? Thanks for tuning in again. Checked out.
It is dreamy vibes. It really is.
Thought it was a little dreamy. Yeah, it was a lot slower than I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a pretty long time to kind of get to the stuff you expect out of it.
But I was so engrossed in it, though.
Yeah, I guess.
So whereas we reviewed Relic, that took a little while to get into everything, and that one just had me like, all right, get to it. This one I was really interested in.
Yeah,
I was really engrossed in it and wanting to see where it went, and I think that has to do with the atmosphere that it creates.
There's definitely tension, which comes from the characters' relationship to each other. There's a lot of their relationship. They're dating, but their relationship is kind of a rough patch. They're clearly not getting along so well anymore. And then also their entire trip is interrupted by this older couple who are friends of the guy's father, I guess, are crashing at the beach house, the titular beach house as well, unbeknownst to the young couple. So there's already this weird intrusion into their weekend, into their time together, where they have to now coexist and sort of host these other people that they don't even know. And the wife of the older couple is struggling with something. We don't really get into it, but she's highly medicated, so she's struggling with a number of things, either mentally or physically. So there's all this tension. It's very, so we talked about Lovecraft country. This is like
very Lovecraftian.
I would say this is very sort of classically Lovecraftian, whereas people now, because of things like Cthulhu, who've become so big and popular and kind of exist outside of Lovecraft and the original literature, it's not overtly Lovecraftian where there's a monster rising out of the sea and chasing people or anything like that, but the idea of, like I said earlier, this primordial life that you never ever get like the big expository dump on what it is exactly. It ties into the female lead's backstory and what she's going to school for, which is like studying patterns and like evolution, and interested in like cosmic life and how life originates on a planet. And it gets really into like the nihilism of Lovecraftian themes, and we're basically humanity's a fluke. I didn't see Jessica went to sleep. Good night, honey. Sleep well in the tent tonight. Thank you for watching. I love you. Sorry, I was on my rant about Lovecraftian themes. But yeah, it gets kind of into the traditional cosmic dread of it, that humanity's insignificant or a fluke, just some space dust that came around at the right time, and anything else happened along the way, everything we really know could have ceased to exist. and that's her main fascination. And I think that what we were seeing from the what was coming up from the seabed, it's like, oh yeah, we'd be very easily knocked on our ass as the top of the food chain species. Something could come along that we don't understand that could instantly take us out. And remind me a little bit of Color Out of Space that came out this year.
See, I still have not seen that. I might watch it tonight.
I really like it. I mean, obviously we love Nick Cage on this show, and he's given a big performance in that movie. But
oh hell yeah, it's
great. It's some of the best. Like we talk when we're talking about these movies, we're talking about some body horror, but that's a big body horror movie. Great monster design. And Nick Cage is just fantastic, and I recommend it a lot. And this reminded me of that, and that is, of course, an adaptation of a Lovecraft story. But I really liked the sort of subtle themes, the cosmic dread and such, and this, and that it really never did get to, oh, a big sea monster is running around. It's just like it gets in your body, it gets in your mind. It makes you hallucinate. It's coming out of the water and it's getting in the air, and it's got this weird bioluminescent quality. And you never really get around to completely understanding what it is.
Which I was fine with. I didn't need to understand it. I just know it's fucking these people up.
they're captive.
A couple of my favorite shots in this movie are once again those long shots that they relish in. The one where the husband walks out into the ocean.
That was
stays with that for a while, and he just disappears into the ocean. Thought that was one of my favorite shots. And then the other one is when it's the poster shot when she's crawling up that long flight of stairs. And it just pops up. They also take their time on that, and it's done so well.
Yeah, it really it does take its time. And for like a 90-minute movie, I don't think you really get to the real horror stuff you expect from the movie until maybe 40 minutes in, 50 minutes in. It really takes its time to get there. But I think it adds to kind of the tension because we're going to get there. So it's very slowly creeps in. With like the wife wandering outside at night. Between this and The Rental, I feel like I've learned don't do recreational drugs.
Just don't do it.
You're going to be victimized by a serial killer or some sort of oceanic parasite. Just don't do it. It's going to end poorly. People go missing. It's a bad night. It's going to ruin your vacation weekend at the very least, I've learned.
Stick to Sour Monkey, Sour Trufel from Victory Brewery.
It's true. As wild as you've gotten in the Sour Monkey, you've not been murdered or infected by a parasite.
Very true. I stand by it.
As good of a cosign as
I have 100% survival rate.
Yeah, it's true. He's alive. So I think the big scene is obviously her stepping on the weird, spongy things on the beach. Some weird sort of refuse that's washed up out of the ocean on the shore.
Then she just gets a butthole on her foot.
Yeah, she gets this weird hole, and you can see stuff moving around in there, and then that leads up to...
Which I will say seems to be a common theme in both of these movies is buttholes, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Butthole number one is the one in the foot. That's butthole number one, and we'll talk about butthole number two in the next movie.
I can't completely remember what butthole number 2 is in Sea Fever, so I'm excited to see what you're talking
when I talk about it, you'll be like, oh, yeah.
What do we think about the big scene in this movie of her taking the worm out of the foot?
Oh, I loved it. And it made me cover my mouth. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
She used the knife and tongs, and I was like, that does not seem very efficient. But she did it.
Pretty gross, yeah. Definitely the most intense, like, graphic violence in this film. There's that. It's the idea of something living in your body is freaky. A parasite in your body, anything like that, like even ticks or like a leech or anything that's like living off of you is.
Ugh.
And there's so many like real world. Luckily, most of them don't interact with humans in any way. But there's so many like, creepy parasites like in the insect world and.
See, here's the lesson I learned from The Rundown featuring The Rock and John Williams.
Yeah.
Don't be in a body of water you're not familiar with.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
Parasite can just swim up your stream.
flies up
Get
that.
in, yeah. So yeah, just water's scary.
Water is. We definitely learned this week. Water is scary. The worm scene is definitely what people will remember from the movie. And as that we get from the sort of the basic entry body horror stuff, we learn how like it's leveled this entire community because it's not just you step in it or you swim in it. It's like it's in the air and you're breathing it in as well. It makes it seems like it just full on like mentally incapacitates you and your eyes go dull. You're crawling around. It basically makes you zombifies you essentially.
Mm-hmm.
There was that one scene towards the end where she like goes down to the basement of a house they break into to like seek shelter, and there's like some weird, yucky, slimy person thing that's like coming together out of this person's corpse. What'd you think of that scene? Because that was pretty intense.
Yeah, that also had me like, gross.
But Brandon did bring up the ending. For the audio listeners, he said, "What do you guys think is the connection between Emily and Mitch are chatting about all the information available in the modern age?" And he says he's scared, and she says she's hopeful, and don't be scared. And then at the end, she's washed up and white-eyed, saying the same thing. It's worth looking at the ending of this movie because I really still haven't decided how I feel about it. It's definitely the kind of like cynical horror ending where the people don't win. No one wins, and they succumb to whatever the antagonist is. In this case, not really a solid corporeal being, but whatever the influence in the parasite or whatever it is coming out of the ocean is.
Yeah, because when she says that, she says, there are things we don't understand, and we're learning at such a fast pace. So people shouldn't be scared. It's a good thing. And at the end, she's incapacitated by this thing she doesn't understand, and she's telling herself to pretty much taking her own advice. Don't be scared.
Yeah, and so I guess, are they likening the information age to Lovecraft? Because Lovecraftian stuff is so like the unknowable. It's like you see it and you can't comprehend it, and it drives you mad, and you are just susceptible to it, and you're an insignificant speck in contrast to it. You're just another cog in the machine. Ultimately, I don't know if the movie is ultimately if that's what it's really doing, is likening cosmic horror to what we're creating in the information age, creating things that are bigger than our lifespans and humanity. I don't know if it's pro that or if it's taking the perspective of you should be scared, because obviously it doesn't seem like a good thing that at the end she just kind of gives up and gets washed out to sea, ready to become one or a part of whatever it is that's coming into this community. I guess you would think the movie's not really too optimistic about it, because
it's not an optimistic movie.
He doesn't seem like anybody's really having a good time.
I was reading about the movie, and apparently the writer and director, he had just gone through a breakup and stayed at a beach house and wrote the movie and watched a bunch of old like 50s and 60s horror movies.
Definitely has like Thing vibes, clearly.
So I think it's a very cynical movie. I don't think the ending is a hopeful ending.
That maybe the expansion of humanity in the modern age and the information age, maybe it as much as we sort of thrive against the dying light, inevitably we're all going to succumb to it eventually.
Yeah.
And maybe that's represented in the way of an ocean presence, some life that predicates us on the earth coming back. And because you see sort of the plates disconnect at the beginning and water escape at sort of a jet stream. So it seems to me like it's something ancient that was here before us and got put away, and now it's come back, and it's going to take us out really fast, and we're just going to become a part of it. And maybe that has something to do with the advancement of a technology, the spread of information and the internet, and people talk about like the singularity, melding with technology, and eventually, this is getting into like intense conspiracy stuff, I guess. But
I'm listening.
Elon Musk is scared of that shit, I know. of the. I believe he's the one who's, or maybe it was more of Stephen Hawking who was afraid of it. The idea of like humanity and technology becoming so synonymous with.
I'm not entirely. I don't think it was Elon Musk, because I'm not entirely convinced his child is not an android.
Good point. That might be the first singularity we've created in our history, is whatever he and Grimes have concocted.
How many infected feet do you give this movie?
Infected feet. How many feet worms?
How many foot worms?
I go 3.5. You pull the fourth one out and you chop it in half, because you don't want that to get back in your tootsies. So you pull that last one out and you cut it in half, and you get 3.5 feet worms.
I'm with you 100%. 3.5 foot worms. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked it. It moved a little slower than I expected, so I was kind of caught off guard by that. I thought maybe the whole movie would kind of be the gross stuff, but that's okay. The scarier stuff is more effective by kind of saving it towards the last half of the movie. So no, I like The Beach House. I would recommend it. That is, as we said, streaming exclusively on Shudder. So if you're not on Shudder, get on there. And when you get on there, obviously we talked about last week, check out Host. And now I'm going to say check out The Beach House. You've already got 2 great movies to watch once you get on there if you haven't already. So recommend The Beach House. Don't step on squishy stuff, though. That's what we've learned.